So UFC 309 is right around the corner, and I would bet my two front teeth that you guys cannot wait to witness the main event that we have in store, Jon Jones versus Stipe Miocic. Now, the thing you have to understand about this matchup is Jon Jones is the greatest fighter of all time. Nobody is better than Jon Jones. Jon Jones is the undisputed, unrefuted GOAT of the sport. Nobody is better than him. If you are alone in a room with Jon Jones and you're a male, you should be fearful for many obvious reasons, and that's because he's the GOAT. He's the best. Again, nobody goes into a room with Jon Jones and makes it out unscathed unless you're a woman. Then he'll need Cialis, but an off-brand Cialis. He doesn't, again, the name brand is kind of, it's more expensive, right? It's the same product for more money. So why would you want that? You know what I mean? But anyway, what was I talking about? Jon Jones versus Stipe Miocic. Yeah, this fight's happening. It's happening. Do I wish it was happening? Not really. But is it happening? Yeah. So, therefore, I guess I need to break it down, huh? Now, look, I've discussed before on the channel that if you kind of look at this fight in a very simple, broad sense, you would say, well, Stipe Miocic is a wrestle boxer. We've seen in the past Jones has sort of struggled with this style against Alexander Gustafsson and Dominic Reyes. So, maybe Stipe can pull off a similar game plan to those two guys. Look, it's possible, but I think there's a lot more to it than that. I think there's a lot of variables going into this matchup. I think there's a lot of unknowns and a lot of very interesting aspects of both of these guys' camps that we can take a lot from. But before we get into that, I wanted to take a moment to thank the sponsor of today's video, DraftKings Sportsbook. If there is one thing I am known for on the MMA YouTube platform, it is doing massive parlays on UFC events. We've hit 2 of them. We've had countless that were just one fight off from hitting. And yeah, we've had our occasional gutter ball. But one thing is for certain, betting just a little bit of money on those fighters you really believe in just makes watching the fights that much more entertaining. And that is why I have partnered with DraftKings Sportsbook. Any new customer, if you bet $5 on anything, you will instantly get $200 in bonus bets. Even if sports betting is not yet available in your state, do not worry. DraftKings is the one-stop shop for all things daily fantasy, where you can join in on all the fun and have a shot to win cash prizes. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Again, new customers, use my promo code MMAShay, put $5 on any wager, get $200 in bonus bets instantly. That's promo code MMAShay, only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Starting off, of course, as I alluded to prior, Jon Jones is not a great boxer. He's just not that good. He himself is really not dangerous with his hands. His boxing defense isn't super high level. He typically does stay very defensively sound. Of course, Jon is very rarely running into punches. He typically does a good job covering up and moving away with strikes, which is how you're going to avoid really getting hurt by them. And he uses his patented one hand up, the other arm fully extended out. And what's great about this guard is the fact that he does such a good job shoving his fingers into your eyeballs. And where the skill gap comes from here is that if you do it too much, you'll get a point taken away, of course. But Jon has mastered doing it just enough to get an advantage over his opponent, whereas not getting the referee involved. And that's something you gotta commend him for. But again, when boxing Jon Jones, there typically is not a lot of risk coming back in your direction. And that is why when you look at the Gus 1 fight and the Dominic Reyes fight, what you're going to see with both of those fights was Jon Jones is trying to walk these guys down. He wants to pressure them. He wants to get in their face, and he was searching for takedowns. And both guys did an amazing job defending the takedowns, and they were using superior hand speed to land combinations and constantly be circling, staying on their bike, making Jon walk into their combinations. Look, the strategy worked amazing, but it's interesting when you look at the Gustafsson 2 fight, it was completely different. Jon completely changed his strategy from the first fight, and that fight was irrecognizable to the initial one. What we saw there was Jon staying away from Gustafsson. Jon was the one on his bike, circling, avoiding boxing range, and he was doing 2 things: spamming kicks, and every single time that Gus would try to step in with a shot, he would either clinch or he would shoot a takedown. And this is another thing that I've discussed in depth in the past, but on paper, this is the antidote to the heavy boxing style. You either want to be all the way out of boxing range kicking, or you want to be all the way in the clinch. That is how you defeat the boxing heavy style, and that is exactly what Jon Jones did to essentially completely neutralize Alexander Gustafsson. You would think that, yeah, at this point, Jon has completely corrected all the mistakes he made initially, and that style just doesn't work the same way against him. But you fast forward to the Dominic Reyes fight, and Jon fought that fight exactly like the Gus 1 fight. He just kept walking at Reyes, tried to pressure him, tried to close the distance, and Reyes, being the faster boxing heavy fighter, was just moving, landing combinations, and moving again, and it just did not work well for him, and he should have got the decision over Jon Jones. And this right here is the first big question mark going into this fight. We know Stipe Miocic is a very high-level boxer. The Daniel Cormier fights, it was so impressive seeing him rip to the body, get DC really worried about those body shots, then he would start feinting and landing shots upstairs and really hurting DC with this exact setup. And that is exactly what Gustafsson did to Jones and what Reyes did to Jones. Both of them were landing body shots, and then as soon as Jones would start worrying about them, they would start feinting their level downwards and then coming up and around over the top to land upstairs. So look, we know this style works against Jon Jones, but is Jon going to fight Stipe like he did Gus 1 and Dominic Reyes, or is he going to try to stay on the outside and frankly just spam kicks and try to shoot takedowns anytime Stipe steps forward? I mean, look, if he does the latter, I don't think this is a close fight for Stipe. I've got to be honest, because Stipe, I don't think he's going to quite have the speed that Dominic Reyes had. Look, he's 42 years old. The last time we saw him in a UFC event, he came hobbling in there. It's a big question mark how he's going to look physically. And if he doesn't have the speed, he's not going to be able to close the distance on Jon Jones trying to stay away and trying to spam kicks, especially when you look at the fact that Jon clearly is a lot slimmer for this fight than he was prior. When he fought Ciryl Gane, he did not want any part of kickboxing with Ciryl. He wanted to avoid that at all costs, which was very smart. He knew the only thing he needed was to take him down once, and Ciryl just was not going to be able to contend with him in the grappling. And that's why, in his mind, he needed to be, fucking giant, right? But against Stipe Miocic, I think he's very well aware that he needs to avoid the boxing, stay on the outside, move, kick, and threaten takedowns whenever Stipe moves forward. I mean, to me, it's a no-brainer. I think, honest to God, he probably really underestimated Dominic Reyes. I don't think he tried to game plan that hard for him, and that's why he reverted back to a lot of the mistakes he made against Gus 1 in that matchup. But here, it seems to me, based on context clues, that he is very well aware of the advantages he has here in this matchup, and he's looking to use them, especially when you factor in the point that, again, Gordon Ryan is back working with Jon Jones. He's a very big part of this camp. Stipe Miocic doesn't really know any jiu-jitsu. Stipe Miocic doesn't really know any submission defense. He's never, frankly, really needed to, because very, very few fighters at heavyweight have dangerous submissions, but Jon Jones is one of them. And according to Gordon, he's been working really closely with Jon on darces, working with him on guillotines, just trying to utilize that freakishly long reach that Jon Jones has. And, that also gets kind of scary when you look at, again, the second Gustafsson fight. Jon was looking for two takedowns. Either he was trying to get Gustafsson to run into double legs, or he was looking to pick up the single leg and run the pipe with it. Well, that is the exact takedown that DC hit against Stipe in their third fight. Picked up a single leg, ran the pipe the exact same way Jon did, got him down. Stipe was forced to turtle. He ended up in this position right here. And man, if you're in this position against Jon Jones, you are going to get either darced or you're going to get guillotined very, very easily. That's why, man, if I'm in Stipe's corner and he gets taken down, I'm saying ride the round out. We're looking to reset on the feet. You cannot give Jon any opportunity to hunt for submissions. He's just too dangerous in that area. Of course, on the feet, I do favor Stipe in some particular areas, but if Jon just does exactly what he did in that Gus 2 fight, just tries to stay away and spam kicks, I really don't know how Stipe is going to close the distance. He needs to try to find a way to keep the fight in boxing range, where at the same time avoiding the clinch. Jon Jones is so dangerous in the clinch. He's so dangerous with those knees and those elbows, and that's the hard thing here in this matchup. Jon essentially has every single advantage everywhere except the boxing. Well, that makes it pretty easy to avoid the boxing. You got a lot of places to go, either way on the outside or all the way on the inside. And look, there's a reason why people, me included, aren't super hyped about this fight. We don't think it's great, and that's because Stipe, just honest to God, does not have a whole lot of advantages. Look, of course, though, all it's going to take is a few really good rips to the body to get Jon worried about it. That's when he begins feinting low, ending the combinations upstairs, and Stipe hits hard. I mean, he absolutely does. Everybody at heavyweight does. And if he connects clean with Jon Jones on a strike he just didn't see coming because he was worried about that body shot, I mean, we can see Stipe knock out Jon Jones. I think that is 100% possible, and God, I'm praying for it every single night. Every single night I'm going to sleep praying this is the outcome. Dana White would probably turn a new shade of red the universe has never seen before. But again, there's a reason why people aren't happy about this matchup, and that's because Jon has pretty much every single physical advantage. Stipe's 42 years old. He hasn't fought in many years. His last fight, he got horrifically knocked out. And yeah, look, Jon Jones, he should win this fight very, very easily. But look, Stipe, he's capable of winning. And, I'm going to try to Israel Adesanya manifest it into existence.